It is first season interim coach still. She's back in the program, Michaela Kleisinger. Still interim, eh? They couldn't give you a contract or anything before the playoffs here?
Yes, sir. Still holding that title. I think as we go along here, the athletes are hating that word more and more. So hopefully we're all ready to see it go away, but got to finish this one out first.
Okay, not to dwell on things, and we talked with you late December, and then we talked about how difficult January was going to be because it was going to be Alberta and the UofS, which are great measuring sticks, right? You guys go on a 3-game slide, basically, in the schedule. You know, you lose the last game to Alberta, and then you lose the 2 to Saskatchewan. Always a good thing in sports. Sometimes you get some callous, right, to have some losses. Did you learn anything about your team in those 3 games and the 3 losses?
Yeah, those games were really important for us because, you don't want to head into the playoffs with no adversity, in my opinion. I said it to you guys in December. You knew we were coming up against some competition there. And so, that's where you do the most learning, in my opinion, right? Like we came up against a really good Alberta team and split, which was honestly a successful weekend for us. Again, they were really, really highly ranked at the time. So that was a successful weekend. And then obviously the UofS is very good. They didn't lose a game all year. So that weekend was really important for us because it's a measuring stick. We've talked all season about, kind of what the end of the season is going to look like and where we want to go. And they're clearly the team to beat. So you need to know kind of where you stack up against them in order to do that. And I also think that it's an advantage to play them during the season. So then ideally, if you get another crack at them in the playoffs, you kind of know what adjustments to make and maybe you get another chance to win. So yeah, lots of learning there.
Was it beneficial, Michaela, to play them later in the season as well, kind of close to playoffs?
Yeah, I think so. I think our season was this is just luck of the draw, but it sort of ramped itself up, we were playing those ranked teams later in our season. And so we've been able to talk about getting better every weekend because the competition was also getting better as we went, right? Like we came out of Christmas and we played Calgary, who was our first ranked opponent. So we had to be ready for that. And then a couple weeks later, we play Alberta and then we play Sask right away. And then now here we are in the playoffs, right? So it's been good because it doesn't allow for any setbacks or lulls. You kind of have to be on your game going into playoffs, which is a good thing. That's what you want to be anyway. So
I know coaching hockey or playing it and then even football, sometimes you don't want to show everything to an opponent. It's like, okay, let's take the loss here, let's go watch the tape, we bank the tape, we'll go back to that. Did was UofS what you thought, and then now is it beneficial to go back and say, okay, well, we were outmatched here, maybe we can go back and then really not show all your cards and then have some in your arsenal if you do face them again?
Was the UofS what I thought? They are incredibly good at basketball, so yes, they were what I thought. And we faced a lot of adversity going up there and playing. Their crowd was loud. They're a very good team. They're a very prepared team, a very disciplined team. So we had to learn a few hard lessons on night one for sure. And to be honest with you about your question, I really just didn't think we brought what we had prepared. We weren't maybe ready for the intensity and the level of discipline required to play in that game. And so then when we went back to it on what ended up being Tuesday, we really tried to hone in on a few key things that could help us bridge that gap and get us closer. And I think, to be frank, we weren't really in a position to hold back. We didn't play as well as we could have on the Thursday, and we needed to really try and fight with everything we had for a win on Tuesday. But we didn't end up using everything we prepared. So there is room for growth there. And a couple of the athletes and I were talking about it after, and, we're excited to maybe get to use those things if we get another chance to play them. So hopefully those extra weeks of preparedness and practice will allow us to be better at them when the time does come.
So now you guys are hosting a Canada West quarterfinal tomorrow, Saturday, 6 p.m., either UBC, Okanagan, or Brandon. how do you prepare for that? Do you prepare for both teams? Do you know a lot about both teams? Obviously you're confident with your team and your skills, but how do you, I guess, prepare watching what happens tonight and then turning it around and playing tomorrow night against one of them?
Yeah, it's been a different week for sure because you don't know who you're playing, which is different than legitimately every other week we play in the season before this and after this, right? So it's a cool week to spend. We're in a very lucky position. Like, we worked hard to host the quarterfinals so that we don't have to play today. And so that makes for a good week where you get to really focus on yourself and the things that your team needs to get better at before the playoffs. And I've also said that we lucked out. We've got a couple of teams playing today in our space that play very similar basketball. So the style of basketball from both teams is something that we could spend the week preparing for. You know, the X's and O's and the player personnel are the things that we'll talk about tonight and tomorrow. But from like a general sort of principles perspective, they play very similarly. So I've tried to take advantage of that and use that in our prep for the week. And again, then no matter who we end up playing, we're at least ideally 3 or 4 days ahead.
And then also when we talked in December, we name dropped some of the seniors and some of the leaders on the team. But into playoffs, a lot of times it could be, the rookies or second year players that all of a sudden will emerge and the spot and the stage won't be too big for them. Anybody that comes to mind that you want to name drop that you're thinking, hey, we're expecting a lot from these younger players going into the playoffs here?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the case all season, and we've needed the contributions from Izzy Foust and Lily Vandergraaf all season. Like, Izzy's a starter for us, and Lily's coming off the bench as someone who's playing really good defense for us, which is rare for a rookie. So, that's an interesting thing that you say there, because it's true. You get into these playoffs and the 5th year, 6th year kids, they've experienced it. So they feel it a little bit more, right? They know the magnitude of what they're doing, and the young kids just go out and play, like they don't know yet what they're up against and what it might look like and what the other side of these games feels like. Right. So it's, those are fun kids to watch because you kind of let them loose. And you asked me what we learned against the UofS. Like, we learned that we need the contribution from everybody. That's the UofS and the teams we're coming down the stretch to try and beat here are not teams you can beat with 1 or 2 players. Like, we need the contribution of people like Izzy, Lily coming off the bench in order to do what we want to do and reach our goals. So it'll be fun. It'll be cool to watch, I think. Yeah.
I know a lot of coaches, they always say, don't want to look too far ahead and we want to stay in the now and all that. Where I was always, as a player of anything or a coach, I'm always like, well, you got to put out the nugget, right? Like, what are we trying to get to? So do you guys talk about Quebec City? Have you ever been to Quebec City?
I have not been to Quebec City. Which for me at the beginning of the year was a selling point. I was like, hey, we got to go there. I want to just go because I've never been. But it's interesting. I would say yes and no is the answer, because we talk about those goals, right? We want to get to nationals. Which in turn means we have to win the Canada West semi, right? So those are the milestones that we talk about. And what I've really tried to avoid is talking about the teams that might be in the way of getting us there. So from a playing perspective right now, we have to talk about just the next team, right? We play either UBCO or Brandon tomorrow, and we have to beat them. We have to win that game. That's it, right? But from a broader perspective, we can talk about, we want to get to nationals. We want to play in the Canada West final. That means we've gotten to nationals, right? So we set those goals right at the beginning of the season. And that's been kind of our guiding light, I would say. And then we try to, or I at least try not to think too much about who might be the team that gets in the way of that along the way, right? We have to win the next one to keep going towards that goal. So that's where we're at right now.
Right on. Well, it's exciting, right? You get to watch tonight, and then tomorrow 6 p.m. Do you, out of curiosity, have you watched any of the Olympics? Are you a Winter Olympics kind of fan? Are you watching any of that, or just watching tape and getting prepared?
No, the Winter Olympics are a nice break. I wake up in the morning, drink my coffee, watch somebody ski down a mountain, and realize that, it's funny because when you watch those athletes, like it makes you feel like you're just a drop in the bucket over here, coaching youth sports basketball. But it's been a nice break. And, I was talking about it with a friend the other day. It's been a lot of there's a lot of good lessons in that, right? Like, there's a lot of good lessons in role playing with the Canadian men's hockey team is a great example. You're watching someone like Brad Marchand be on the fourth line, who's literally a Stanley Cup champion. There's a lot of good lessons for team play and role play and being a good teammate in that. So there's a lot to be said for the Olympics at the same time. That's for sure.
Appreciate it. I know it's busy around there. Really excited about tomorrow night. Doesn't matter who the opponent is, and best of luck. And hopefully we get to catch up again when you're on your way to Quebec City. Hope
so. Yeah, I hope we get to like you say, talk in 3 weeks. That's the goal.
Right on. All right.
Thanks
Good
so
luck,
much.
Michaela. Thank you so much. U of R Cougars head coach. Obviously, it looks like if you're watching the stream that she could still get out there and play. So tomorrow night, 6 p.m., University of Regina Gymnasium, as I've been calling it. They play either UBC, Okanagan, or Brandon. Those two teams play here tonight. So, great basketball. Get out there and watch it. It is the Sports Cage. We're on the home of local sports in Saskatchewan, streaming through our YouTube channel at sportscage.com.